exiting out of the school if I wanted to take on this role of like a pathway coordinator. And the role was to, you know, support the growth of CTE at our school. I was excited about it because I was a science department lead. I was actually a TSA, a teacher on special assignment at the time, and I was already doing some of that work in my science class in terms of taking learning outside the four walls and bringing in guest speakers and job shadows. So I was doing a lot of that already in my class. And so she thought it would be a great natural development. Super excited about doing it. I met with our college and career manager who, you know, we kind of paired up and said, yeah, let's do this. And, oh, you know, we didn't know there was a pathway. We just knew that there was like something going on. At the end of the year, we went to like a presentation for the school, the committee for Measure N, and kind of found out that, you know, folks weren't doing it right. So we came with all these excited ideas, and our new principal, our head of school, that came in, we were excited to explain it to her. And so we were like, we're just going to be this environmental engineering pathway. And that's, you know, I was teaching 2 periods of environmental science, and then we just got an engineering program, and it makes sense to pair it together, and found out that that's not how building out a pathway works. And so essentially we were out of compliance with our major funder of Measure N. This is the only funding we knew about at the time. We found out that the school was in its 3rd year of having a pathway, which for me, like I said, I've been in school for a very long time. I didn't even know we had CTE or pathways. And that we were some form of an education pathway, but it was not actually one that was recognized by the industry sector. And I know there's a component of education, but that's not what we were calling it or relating it to. And so we were in this position of a new head of school. My position was new as a hybrid pathway coordinator because I still taught and did that. And then our college career manager, she wasn't new to the school, but new to CTE like the rest of us. We were also new to just understanding what CTE was in terms of expectations, what Measure N actually was for the Oakland schools getting funded by this, and then this brand new model of linked learning. Our pathway was supposed to be in its 3rd year, which meant implementing and not piloting, and meanwhile we were starting from zero. We had no data handed over to us from the former principal to inform where we were at and what we were doing, and we just pretty much had nothing to build off of. So we went into this meeting with the Measure N Council and got chewed out for like everything that we had no idea was going on. And so then we had to figure out, okay, now what do we do? Like, what's going on? Where are we at? How do we get this off the ground? Which is this thing about being realistic. We were in trouble, and there was no way to sugarcoat it. We were in trouble, and we needed to move quickly because we had until December. So we met in August. We had until December to get this thing off the ground. So moves into part 2, create a dream team. It's very, very important. I think this is one of the best steps we had, which was creating like this team of folks to help us move in this short period of time. Prior to us, it was only the principal who left who was holding all of this. And to be sustainable, you have to have a team. So our initial dream team was the 3 of us who kind of came into this excited and ready to go. And so we kind of started making a to-do list of what we needed and where we needed, what were the next steps, who needed to come support us. And from there, we built a design team, which included the 3 of us. We have a dean of STEM, a data coordinator, who's also having to teach the engineering class. And we had our parent coordinator who kept updated with the meetings that we had. This year, to expand our team, we also included our dean of students and school culture, and some of our what we call our Adelante team, which is our student support team. And having more than one person to thought partner, to work with, to attend different types of meetings and site visits has been very, very essential to the quick turnaround that we have been seeing. So this started again August 2017. So then part 3, I put this in green because this was like our saving grace, was hiring a consultant and educating ourselves. Hi, I'm sorry. I just, am I frozen or can you guys still hear me?
We can still hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Someone texted and said that the presentation froze, so I was trying to make sure.
Oh, that might be on their end.
Okay, sorry about that. So the hiring, we were told as part of our Measure N grant that we needed to hire a consultant because I was too new and pretty much they didn't trust me to get this going without talking to someone. And so, you know, a little offended, but I understood, it was fine. So we used Casson and hired this wonderful woman, Patricia Clark. I know maybe some people might have heard of her. She does a lot of work with the Educating for Careers Conference and Link Learning Alliance, if you're familiar with those two, which also is really special for us because Patricia Clark started the first academy in Oakland, which was the Health Science Academy at Oakland Tech, which is where I graduated from, and I was actually in that pathway. And so it was like I had to work with the person who started the pathway that I graduated from. So it was super cool for that. And so we just pretty much went to her and we were like blank slates, and we told her to just whatever we need to know, we're ready and we're going to listen, which is why I emphasize actually listen, because I know sometimes people get consultants or ask for support and then they don't want to do the things that need to be done. We were open because we were like in the red. And so she started giving us all these suggestions and not just telling us what to do, but guiding us and actually working with us to make sure that we were holding the work and we could talk about it without her. We started attending school site visits. So I went to a couple of visits in Southern California and in Sacramento and some around the area. We went to conferences and workshops. Two of the bigger ones for us were the Link Learning Alliance Conference, which again is the model we're using. And then the Educating for Careers Conference, which was held in Sacramento, which was really helpful. We utilized all tools given to us that we could. So the CTE website to make sure that we are in compliance with all the things that we needed, our Linked Learning website, and then consulting with other people who were more established to figure out what they were doing, what worked, what didn't work. We got great information just from networking alone. And we are continuing to do this as well, which is why I'm excited about doing this presentation, because I get to, hopefully can network some more. And then we had to pick a pathway from something meaningful. So prior to the consultant and talking to the Measure N committee, the pathway kind of just got randomly chosen based on what the adults in the space wanted to do versus actually looking at like market data research and looking at hiring trends and, job growth and pathways and what are alternative options to these things and surrounding industries. One thing that's really big for us is because we are in this Fruitville community, there are a lot of different businesses around us. And that was great data to look at and people to talk to about like, where can our students go? What are their options? There's a huge local community clinic called La Clinica that is located right in the plaza with us. A lot of our families use this, the clinic. And so, perfect partnership where, right, and we also share space with the West Coast Children's Clinic. Again, health related, right in our area. We have an optometry center business right in the plaza. And so like health just started kind of being the theme that was coming up for us in doing this research. We also did, we checked in with surrounding colleges. We have a bunch of community colleges in our area. We have, our local state schools and universities. We started looking at majors and how much people are graduating and what kind of jobs they're getting. And we just kind of collected all of this information, and we started piecing together, okay, now what are these industry sectors and what are they actually? Because again, it wasn't referenced the first time the pathway was picked. And then where does the data lead us? And so then we also start looking at, which is something still in progress, I'll speak on later, an advisory board committee to help us with this data and research. So part 5 is, after we did all of this, we went and talked to all stakeholders and gathered as much data as we could use on their opinion. Again, beforehand, it was picked by the adults, and it was like a really small group of adults that actually even picked it without talking to anyone else. And so we used this really great source called Youth Truth to just start getting some information about how our students, our families, and our staff feel about the school. And what I like about Youth Truth is you can get data on a lot of things, social, emotional wise, on school culture, even and on college and career. And we kind of just did like this whole survey just to see how folks felt in general, because it's something we have been informally doing, but not on this level. And so we got to see that our students, while they feel like they have trusted adults in this space and that we care about their learning and about their well-being, and families generally were happy, a lot of folks did not feel fully prepared for college and career, and which was a big hitting point for us, because we pride ourselves on college and career readiness and supporting our kids to go out to be these academic warrior intellectuals, to fight and for rights and to give back to the community. And here we are having a group of a lot of our students saying that they don't feel like they're fully prepared. And so we use that data. Then we also created our own survey with the top industries. So we went on the 15 industry list sector. We took the data that got the market data research and then the Youth Truth, and we combined to pick here are the aligned top industries that it sounds like folks are interested in and that have matched the data research. And so each student at the school, we have advisories, which are smaller settings for each grade level to be in, to have have a teacher that they can go to for support for college and career. We gave those surveys out, and we had students kind of say, where would your interest lie in these top areas here? And, this was real basic, we printed out things. We tried to give examples of careers so they could know. And then the data coordinator and myself, we counted these surveys by hand and grouped them off on where the industry sectors went. And then we broke that down even further to see what are the top 2. From there, that's where we came with engineering and health science. I held pathways in a snack to gather information from staff. So what I did was I created a Google Excel sheet, had all staff sign up, where they sat and talked with me about what CTE is, at least from what I knew at that point, what our pathway plans were, what questions and concerns do they have, and we just had these, and I fed them. It's important you feed people, they tend to come more. And so that gave us really helpful feedback from staff. And then we had an open session. So when it came time to pick our pathway, we had an open session for staff and, who had strong opinions about it. And this was after we heard from parents and students. And with all of that together, and we stipend teachers because it was outside of work hours, we got together to choose the pathway of health science, the industry sector of health science. And then the pathway theme specific was public and community health. Prior to that, this school is largely like a humanities-based school. And so this was a huge shift for us, that students are telling us they are more interested in STEM, and that's the angle that they wanted to go. And so we had to think of how can we shift this narrative without getting folks to freak out like, now I got to teach science, and like, which is what people were kind of moving towards. And then we also informed our board about the changes as well, because they had no idea what was going on with the CTE, with the grants that we received. It was just like a bunch of confusion. Again, just this emphasis on the pathway. The actual picking of a pathway was really important for me, because I really, really wanted it to include as much student and family voice as possible, as we were still trying to build out an advisory board and some of the other things that more established school had. And I know it's easy for folks to think about, well, we're just going to link it to funding, or we're just going to link it to who can we hire, because it's easier to hire people from this industry than this other one. It is very important to have student voice and student say, because when you're making such a large change, the buy-in is there because the interest is there. And so we got dinged really hard on our site visit from our Measure N Council committee because we did not have any student voice, and we just chose the pathway 2 different times. And so this was a big turning point for us at the school of like, we are embracing CTE and linked learning, and we're doing what we know is best for our students. And so from there, once that was picked and we did this big reveal, like, hey, we're this pathway. I was excited about it. I really tried to cheerlead the heck out of it, and it kind of fell with a large amount of resistance from all over the board. And so this idea of find your champion. I went to a conference and I kept hearing people say this over and over, find your champions, find your champions. Thought it was a little cheesy at first until I found my champions and realized how important that is. Because we are making this huge shift from, this humanities lens to now more of a STEM lens, folks kind of panicked. Like, am I going to have to teach science? Are you guys going to cut classes because you just need science? And we had to convince folks that that wasn't what we were doing. We also had to convince folks that we weren't going to lose our identity of being a social justice school. And so what I did was I talked with coaches and our deans last year, Dean of Humanities, Dean of STEM, and figured out who had the most opinion around like not really feeling the pathway work. And once that was done, that's the group that I targeted to really try to convince them that, we're still going to keep our identity, and we're just going to include this, these components here, and here's how it will really help our school and our students. And so I took that group of staff and I took them to the Educating for Careers conference. And on that, with that conference, I let them pick wherever they wanted to go. We met at the end of each day to talk about plans and hear some of the great things they learned. They got excited, and then we topped it off with a visit to a high school in Sacramento, which was already a wall-to-wall pathway with a similar size as our school, similar population as our school, and yeah, wall-to-wall. And they got to see how CTE was added in every class, and the class still was like an English class, and it was still a history class, it was still a math class, and seeing the collaborative work and the things they were working on, and it just got them super on board. And then I let them come back and lead a professional development piece around what they learned and some of the issues and concerns that they had and what we needed to do as a school. And that was like one of the best things we did to get the program going. I finished convincing the board of the changes that needed to happen and their commitment and involvement in what's going on in the school. And then one of my highlights and favorite things that we still have is for student buy-in. created, I learned this at the Link Learning Alliance, I think, conference. We created student ambassadors. And so this is a group of students. We started last year, so they were sophomores and juniors. Currently, they're juniors and seniors, who are like the branding of the pathway. So they learned about CTE, and we're still learning. They learned about linked learning. They learned about Measure N. They know about our CTE grant. They know about the work that it took to get to the pathway. And I just educate them. We meet like once a week. And then they helped to kind of get the other students involved in enrolling. They hosted our very first collaborative project last year. We did a 9th grade collaborative with all subjects involved in this presentation with the theme, our new theme, and they presented it at like a big fair, and the theme was called "What Hurts Us, What Heals Us." And each class, English, math, ethnic studies, their numeracy, or their electives, or art, like all of that, they all contributed a project, some work to this big fair. And it was like the best thing ever. We invited families. Every 9th grade student participated. It was built into all of their classes as a grade. They got trifolds. They put all of their what we call like performance assessments together, and they presented it to the community. It was great. And the ambassadors hosted it all. We did raffles for families. We had them, questions for them to ask the students. It was just great. And then that's kind of like what ended our year, and also kind of got us going for what was going to happen for the next year. Money, I know this is a big thing for everyone, right? All these changes required some funds for us, right? One of the biggest things for us is we had to learn how to actually use the funds. We were in trouble, not only for not implementing correctly and in a timely fashion, but we also were in trouble because we were not using our funds correctly. And I know that different funding sources have different restrictions. And again, our Measure and parcel tax comes with different restrictions than, say, Perkins and CTE. And we had to learn the difference of those. I never managed grants before. Last year I was asked to manage both grants, and that's what I did. So I had to learn it, and we got ourselves out of the hole, which was great. We are still learning about different funding options. That's something I'm always interested to hear folks know about other things. And yes, we are applying for a stronger workforce grant, which I know is coming up soon, a letter of intent. And then we had to know how to budget our money for things that we were piloting versus things that we're implementing. So a lot of our money last year went to small materials, the planning to hire staff, conferences, a lot went to that, curriculum, stipending staff for some of the groundwork that we needed, stipends for guest speakers, and then our paying for our consultant. Then this year, we were able to use funds to hire our first CTE. She's a preliminary eligible CTE teacher. We were able to hire some support staff to help us with the large part of our student support that needed a little beefing. Our PBL projects, more curriculum, more material, conferences, again, big because we're still learning, stipends, field trips, and guest speakers. So just some detail now into the work, right? Dream big, pilot, plan, implement. Again, we hired our consultant. We piloted this year our capstone class, not CAS, I see, sorry for the spelling error there. Capstone class, so we have this senior class. Beforehand, we did these things called defenses, where students had to present large work in each, in their math, science, history, and English classes. We phased those out as of the end of the fall semester, and we're moving into our grad profile defense. It's something that's been in the work for the past 2 years at least. I think this is going into our third. And we have incorporated our pathway theme into this defense. In our capstone class, we're piloting with our first group being able to go and do these defenses and go out and do internships during the school day. We changed around our college fairs and visits. And so the college, we always did college tours in the fall for our juniors and seniors, and in the spring for our sophomores and freshmen. But as of last year, we've been more intentional around trying to visit schools that we knew had stronger like science programs, right, to match our theme. So we have developed a good relationship, for example, with UC Davis. And they even have a second visit for us where they target our Latino population and trying to get them to build diversity at UC Davis. We are targeted student support population because we're not fully homogenous, but like our largest population are Latino students. And that 86% of our students, I actually think it might be slightly higher this year, qualify for free and reduced lunch. Our whole school pretty much falls into the target areas that most grants and like our Measure N are asking for. However, we did go a little deeper and we identified one of our larger target groups as our Black and African American students because they make up the smallest population, but we noticed things like they made up the largest population of suspensions. And so we honed in on that and created this year our first ever Black Student Union to support our students, because we noticed, like, besides suspension, also like with graduation, a lot of them don't stay and they end up leaving our school, so we don't even get to graduate our students in that. And so we're still identifying like the growing populations as we need to target to get them bought into the pathway. We have a dual enrollment. We've had that since Arise started, but what we did was change the push for what classes we were getting. And so one of our highlights was last year we were able to get medical terminology 1 through the College of Alameda. It's our local junior community college. And they come and teach the class on our campus. And so this year we expanded and now we have medical terminology 1 and 2. And so we're working on seeing if we can take it the next step and see if we can get the support with having that translated, because we do know in our area there is a large need to have students who has the knowledge of medical terminology but can translate it as well. We have bi-weekly collaborative planning time for teachers now, which matches the collaborative projects. So this year we were able to get collaborative projects for each grade level. So starting in the fall, 10th and 11th grade did their collaborative projects. And what's really cool about Arise is that when I was first learning about collaborative projects, a lot of schools struggled with getting their math involved, and then with differentiating for students with IEPs and other needs. And we were able to kind of get all of that on our first try. So our collaborative projects had our math, science, history, English, and elective for the grade level all involved in the project. And all had like equal parts contributing to the project, which was super cool. And then because we're community-based, both those grade levels went and did work within the community. The 10th grade team took all of the sophomores to the neighboring, like about 3 or so of the neighboring junior, the middle schools, and presented their projects around gender inequities, and presented that with pamphlets and handouts to the students, to these middle school students. And then the juniors had live blogs where they presented their work around PTSD and the way it affects the body. And they went live and had like hashtags and Instagram. It was on Instagram, and it was really cool, interactive, and effective. And so, yeah, so we just start doing all of these things to just make sure that we became this wall-to-wall pathway that we said we were going to be. We are piloting out our grad profile this year. Another huge win for us is we were able to align our LCAP goals to incorporate linked learning, and we are in the process of our WASC renewal this year, and so that's being built in. So now we have this full alignment of our LCAP, our WASC, and our school goals to incorporate what we're doing with linked learning. We're working on visual representation, and we had, again, highlight one of our students created our pathway logo. He is one of our student ambassadors, and so we have a new logo that we're getting ready to debut to the school, created by a student. We incorporated CTE standards into, so far, all of the science classes. Still waiting on next year. We're going to have them in every single class that Arise offered. We're being more data-driven. We're working on building out our advisory board. We have a really cool community-based advisory board that we're excited about. We're just kind of like finalizing a few components. Next year, changing our master schedule. We changed it a little bit this year. Next year, looking for a bigger change. We got all of our courses A through G approved, which is big for us because some of the courses weren't fully, they were like just in piloting, and they weren't A through G approved. And we're using UCCI and HASP for curriculum for the science classes. And so we just were able to do a lot of these big changes that really show that we're ready to do the work. And some of the bigger things that we are excited about now is our partnerships. Currently, we are taking a group of students to San Francisco State, or this Friday actually, and we're working with SF Build, and students are gonna do this big, it's a freshman class at that, collaborative project where we're working with, so it's Arise High School, San Francisco State, and Globe, which is a program put on by NASA, so we're working with NASA. We work with UC Berkeley, we work with the local community colleges, we have a Parks and Rec type of group, Friends of Salsa Creek we're working with, and just a bunch of different community organizations that are willing to step in and really help, and excited about working with our kids. We are starting for the first time ever at Arise a 9th grade summer intensive, so summer bridge, where we're gonna get rising 9th graders to kind of get acclimated to the school before they have to start school. We're really excited about that. And then for the first time ever again, instead of just doing remedial courses for summer school, we're actually offering summer enrichment programs. We notice like a lot of the times we focus a lot on what happens if a student is failing. And we know that the pathway needs to be sequential, and we're like, oh, okay, we need to make sure students are passing classes. But this year we were able to use funds and set that aside to say, and what about the students who are passing but need more opportunities for the summer? And so we want to offer courses that could be, either dual enrollment or just counted towards graduation to keep them in school as well. And then we're building out, this is an area of growth for us, a CTSO. We are trying to join the HOSA and make sure that our students are getting leadership opportunities in different ways. And so we're still going. And I think the highlight of all of this is to say, we did this in a matter of like a year and a half, right? And we're still growing. We're still trying to build things out in this Keep Dreaming section. We're still trying to work on how to improve. And so I feel like I'm missing something here. I have to go back to get to this slide. And so, yeah, we're looking at what do we need to do to get better. right? How do we build up this 3-course pathway sequence to make it stronger and report it to CalPADS and make sure we're covering all our bases? What bigger shifts need to happen with our master schedule to reflect the courses needed? Adding some courses, we're adding like a health split semester class between health and computer literacy for our freshmen. We want to do a more intentional focus around social emotional support for our freshman students. We're using Get Focused, Stay Focused to kind of align our advisory and really build out this work-based learning component, including this 10-year plan that students will start as freshmen and work on until they're sophomores, which then gets presented in their grad profile defense. This was cut off. It should be larger student ambassador program. We're trying to get that as a class so they can get credit for it. And then building out our project-based learning with our advisory committee. And so again, looking at these steps, it took a lot and it is a lot of work, but if you're passionate about it and you really believe that this is what is best for students, then these are some of the sacrifices and things we're willing to do to make sure that we are giving our students the best opportunity we can. And so with that, I will stop and I will leave room for folks to ask questions. I also have here my contact information. So if folks want to maybe ask anything offline or we run out of time and there needs to be, more detail involved, that you can feel free to do that as well. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
Thank you so much, Josette. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, which you can do so by clicking on the bottom left. You should have a little unmute icon. You can also type any questions into the chat. And it's 4:20. If you have no questions, I encourage you to maybe share a takeaway or something that really resonated with you that was shared. Josette shared so much fantastic information about their experience. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being on here as well. So please unmute yourself or type in the chat and either share a takeaway or ask any questions you have. Oh, there we go. Josette, I don't know if you can see them.
Yeah, I can see.
In the chat, okay. Can you describe some of the PBL, JetBL projects that have been done?
Yeah, so for the PBL projects that we done were the larger ones, I think, that I was talking about. So we did these these cross-curricular projects. So each grade level chose a theme within our theme of public and community health, and we actually started it at the end of the school year. We paid teachers to stay like an extended week to kind of, learn or re-educate ourselves about project-based learning, and then start talking about what does it look like to do these larger projects. And then that's where the themes came from. And then we built in time in our professional development, which we have every Wednesday, to work on these projects. And I say, I know a lot of folks use their advisory board to kind of help with this, or they get a project and then they kind of stick with it, which is what the idea what we did kind of came from a school. I forgot the name, actually. I visited in Southern California. And so one example, so the sophomores, they, or I'll say the juniors actually, they learned about, in their chemistry class, they talked about what PTSD does to the brain. What kind of, what is it, how does it throw the body off balance, chemical imbalances and things like that. In their English class, they read Kindred, and they talked about PTSD and post-traumatic slave disorder or syndrome too. And then in their history class, they learned about different events that happened in history that trigger this. And they went, in science, they talked back about epigenetics and, and so it's just this grade level. In the math, they looked at, they crunched some numbers about who's affected, like how many people are affected, what are some of the ways that happen, like just looking at different types of data points, and then collaboratively put everything together to do these presentations to talk about it. The work-based learning projects, that is an area of growth for us. We have done like job shadows. We've brought in industry experts to do like guest speaking. We are doing something new starting in a couple weeks called Cafe Talks. So that was a way for us to try to get more grade levels involved. And so Cafe Talks are us inviting industry experts to come into the school and talk about different subjects around career exploration. And then we're working on building out, like ninth grade are going to be doing like a problem solving where they get industry or actual industry concern or problem, and then they're going to work their way through it to kind of talk about like, this is what you do in this career, in this position. 10th grade are going on some job shadows and like a student shadow with UC Berkeley. We get to take them on that. We use junior achievement to do job shadows as well. And so, and then the grad profile, the internship piece is going to be the big project for them. And then, so yes, and thank you, Clinton and Amy. And then, Audrey corrected the number. Sorry, I need to correct the number. My number, just to say this out loud, sorry, it's new number, 422, so 510-422-3277, and extension still 504. And then thank you, Laura. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I have a question for you. You said you're going to start doing student internships.
Yes.
Do you do any teacher externships, especially like for your core academic teachers to get them into the healthcare industry? And
so we're looking, yeah, we didn't do any recently, but that's one of the things we're trying to plan for now, like as we're ending like the last of our this last round of our CTE grant of like getting some externships for teachers, and what that will look like, I think more so over the summer.
Yeah.
And we're still looking for like programs, so if there's any like options folks know about, that'd be great for us. But we do have it funded and built out to be able to give those opportunities.
Cool.
I think beforehand we just did the exploratorium.
Oh, nice.
And San Francisco, they offer like an externship, so we had teachers do that. I think more so it's like how to get teachers to want to do that in the summertime for, you know, their learning. So we're working on it.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. We have 5 more minutes. If anyone else has any comments or questions, now is your time to speak or forever hold your peace.
Definitely. And then
if there aren't any, I'm trying to do, you know, teacher wait time,
yeah.
But if there aren't any, then that's all. I think some people have already logged off. I want to thank you all again for being present, and thank you so much again for presenting. That was such a wonderful example and very detailed. I really appreciate it, and I know all of our other viewers did too. So thank you. I did start recording, like I forgot to, but a few minutes in I started recording, so I'll be able to share the recording out with you, and you can share it with staff and other people who weren't able to make it. Yes. If that's okay?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. Great. Okay, then thank you all so much, and feel free to reach out to either of us individually if you have more questions or would like more support.
Yes, and thank you for letting me share about Arise. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. That's it then.
Bye.
See you all later. Stay dry. Okay, I have to figure out how to stop recording.